Therefore, the mind just reflects this light of consciousness. The thinking mind is not direct knowledge, but indirect knowledge. There is this difference between indirect knowledge and direct knowledge. The direct knowledge is a knowledge through the heart, is a knowledge in intimacy by being, while the indirect knowledge is this rational knowledge in a kind of reflection. And we can look at these two, the mind and the heart, and how the heart knows and how the mind knows. The mind knows in selectivity, in succession, by grasping. The mind knows by grasping. So I know about this thing, and then about that issue, and then about that aspect. This is the way in which the mind knows sequentially, while the heart knows in integrality, is a holistic knowledge and knows through surrender. The mind knows through grasping, the heart knows through surrender of the personality in this openness to the depth, to that ineffable. And then that kind of knowledge is not sequential, is not partial, but brings this sense of oneness. That's why the mystics are speaking about this direct knowledge. Jnana yoga is the yoga of knowledge, of this direct knowledge. Jnana yoga is not about, when I started practicing yoga, and many years after that, I imagined that this yoga of knowledge may be about knowing some mysteries or about some aspects related to the beginning of the creation, or about the future, clear vision, and so on. None of them are Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is only and only about the heart, about the spiritual reality of our being, not about a domain in this relativity. That is for the mind. Jnana Yoga is accessing that ineffable, that present moment, which is beyond mind. St. Paul in the Bible also speaks about this. He said, "Now we know as though in a mirror, a time will come when we will know directly." So knowing as though in a mirror is knowing with the mind. It's interesting that it's almost a similar metaphor. The Hindus would say the moon, the sphere of the moon, the reflection. And St. Paul said, we know as though in a mirror. And also, a time will come when we will know directly. Even in the Western spiritual tradition, this direct knowledge appears. There is this concept of gnosis, which is this intimate, direct knowledge, a knowledge done with the heart. Actually, in any act of initiation, the purpose was to quiet the mind. Initiation, actually the word initiation comes from the Latin initium, which means to come to the origin. And coming to the origin again means to reconnect with the essence, to reconnect with the source. And in any initiatic ritual, the adept was first required to prepare herself or himself. And there was a period of purification, a purification of the body and of the mind. So the adept was required to enter the place of, the sacred place of initiation with after a period of fasting maybe, and after a period of intense sadhana or spiritual practice with no mind. So letting behind the thoughts, the mind, in order to receive something which is non-conceptual, beyond any formal theoretical knowledge, that direct transmission, that direct understanding, which is in connection with the heart, this jnana or this revelation. In many, even in some movies, this aspect is emphasized. The silent flute or the sacred mountain, movies in which the hero goes through different challenges, and in the end of a long journey he comes to that place of initiation where he opens a chest and then he finds there an empty book, a book with nothing written on it, or a mirror, finds a mirror to reflect just himself. Also metaphors that show that there is nothing conceptual to be known. There is no secret which can be grasped with the mind. Is this kind of knowledge or this secret that if you know, then you'll know everything, or you'll have the realization. It is even said that the secret is that there is no secret. The secret is that there is no secret. Because the heart, indeed, on the one hand, is the highest secret because it's so inaccessible when we are just in forgetfulness and ignorance, but then it is so intimate. It cannot be grasped with the doing, with the approach of the mind, but it can be revealed as the very intimate ourselves. So this secret, non-secret of the heart. In the Christian tradition, there was a tradition of the fathers of the desert. These people lived beginning with the 3rd century in the Sand Desert in Egypt. First they were running from the persecutions of the Roman Empire, but then after that, soon when the Christianity became legal in the Roman Empire, still more people came to live a life of hermits, which was a life of dedication to God. So referring to these people, we cannot have doubts that it was a need or just running for power. They had these ideas of living in humbleness, simplicity, dedicating their lives to the divine. And their teachings refer to nous, which means in Greek intellect, but in that context was that knowledge or capacity. Nous as a capacity to know God directly. So again, this gnosis, this capacity of knowing God directly. So nous was the intellect of the direct knowledge, which was placed in the heart. They say that every human being has this capacity of knowing directly God. There was even a different concept, knowing by reading or hearing from others. This was diamoia. Diamoia was this kind of classical way of knowing, but there is also a direct way of knowing, and this was nous, the knowing with the heart. They placed in the middle of the heart this seat of the intellect, and they speak also about the eye of the heart. And it is interesting that this symbol, the eye of the heart, is found also in the mystical Islam. In Sufi tradition, for example, they speak about the Ain al-Qalb, the eye of the heart. It is an eye which can see in both directions, an eye which God from inside can see the world. So this would be the seer, that witness consciousness, that equanimity from which everything is seen with no reactivity. So God looking from the heart, from the inside towards outside. And in the same time, this eye is the eye which helps us, as me, as an individuality, to see that infinite reality which is in my heart, God inside. So this is the symbol of the eye of the heart, Ain al-Qalb, the eye of the heart. It's also, because I mentioned Islam, there is also a hadith, affirmation, a sacred affirmation considered to be a revelation of God, in which it is said, heaven and earth cannot contain me, heaven and earth cannot contain me, but I am contained in the heart of my devotee. So expressing again what in Christianity we have, the kingdom of God is in your heart, heaven and earth cannot contain me, but I am contained in the heart of the devotee. So the same intuition, God is in your heart, or can be contained. Of course the heart is in the heart of everybody, but is just about this organ of knowledge which should be trained. We open the heart seen as an organ of knowledge, the eye of the heart, and then that is possible. If we are close to that, we may say, I cannot love, or I love only in these conditions, or only like this, or only like that. These are ultimately our limitations. And our life is expressing these very limitations. So our destiny and everything comes according to this. If we cannot love other than in some very limited circumstances, then we'll not be able to see or to perceive that love as a grace everywhere, here, now.